Surprise! It does not ding when it goes live now. That's very strange. Anyway, surprise! It's the 100th Polygon episode, and I am the only one here. Way! This is going to be a dud of a show. So, Jeff here on what should be a special show, but it's a special show, but it's not really. What could be an interesting show, but it's not really. But there's one thing that I want to discuss before I do anything, depending on if somebody comes in or not, is I finally, and I'm going to turn on my video, that for the longest time I've been mentioning about this book, which is seen, I think it's, hello, it's this book right here, which I finally did get. The What Stands in a Storm by Kim Cross. This is about the April 27th event in the South, mainly, it focuses quite a bit on Tuscaloosa, but I finally read it, and this was the interesting thing about that book. I started reading it. This was kind of an odd thing. I started reading it at about 10 to 1 in the morning a couple of days ago. I read the whole thing in 3 hours. And at the end of the book, when I finished it, and this may be kind of geeky or something, well, it's not really geeky, I then had a thunderstorm blow through at 4 in the morning. And that was, and that thunderstorm, because when we go to the current weather, we had a couple of thunderstorms, and that thunderstorm dumped hail everywhere. I went to sleep during it because I was like, I need to go to sleep. And my mother had told me the next day, which was later that morning, that the hail had covered the ground, which didn't surprise me any. And there was still a little bit of hail around because it hadn't melted, because the temperature was just barely above freezing. So, but then that was that storm early in the week. We had a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. We had a tornado watch. We had winter storm warnings, or known as a typical day in Iowa. So, but back to that book, back to, okay, wait a minute, back to this book again. I read the book in 3 hours. And then, of course, I did some other stuff. But then the interesting thing about it was the aftermath part, which I did not like. There's parts of this book where I had to stop and actually put the book down for 5 minutes to think about it. Especially for a part, and I don't want to read the whole book because you need to read it for yourself. But anyway, and I'm going to have to find it because now I don't know where the heck it is. Okay, it's somewhere in here. Here it is. This is a quote. I'm not going to say the thing. This is the quote that I had to stop after this little part right here. This came through my window, he said. Okay. What is the this? The this was unfortunately a baby or a very young child who had died. And I had to stop that because the person that was given this dead child already had a dead child there, and that wouldn't be the end of it. The first 3 people, this man who's named a paramedic in Tuscaloosa, the first 3 people that he found injured were children, very young children, and they are all dead. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not a good book already, that I don't like it, but they have to show the gore. They have, because they can't just like the people died. They have, so I'm like this, I had to stop and think about that, because I know this is supposed to be a special celebration, 100 episodes, but then that's like dour because I'm talking about dead things and dead babies and whatnot. But we were discussing that about April 27th, the last couple of weeks when Matt's been on about that. So, But I finally got that book and read it straight through. And some of the stories there, it's tragic. For example, and I'm going to do, I feel like I'm going to be doing like, this will be a whole book report, a book review on this, a review on this book. But, and as some would know, I tend to get, if they start naming out addresses, because I think most people would do this too. They'd see an address, they'll go look it up on Google Maps. So I decided to do that for this one address, which I'm sure if people have read the book, you'll know which one I'm talking about. And it's surprisingly enough, there I found the address, and I found the thing in question, the address, and there was a before picture, and there was an after picture. Now, of course, the house was destroyed, so it was rebuilt. But so it's not the meaning of the house itself, because the house was destroyed, they rebuilt it, rebuilt a new one. It was the foliage around the neighborhood. Prior to that, the tornado. This was in Tuscaloosa, I might add. There were trees everywhere. Trees. It looked like you were in a forest. And then you get to the after. There may be 10% of the trees still left. And most of the ones that were there had been planted new. And I've never been to Tuscaloosa. I've been to Birmingham numerous times, but never to Tuscaloosa. And when I went down to the NWA meeting with Henry, who's been a co-host of the show numerous times in the past, we decided to go through Joplin because Henry wanted to stop and take a break. So we decided to go through Joplin on our way down, because we decided. And we were actually going to spend the night coming back in Joplin. But anyway, I digress. We decided to drive up Range Line. And if you've seen the video, there's a video out there on YouTube of a storm chase group, which it's Roger Hill's group, that they were driving down Range Line right ahead of the tornado. Tornado was a couple miles west. And you can watch that video, and you can just start naming all the buildings that were completely flattened from about the beginning of that clip all the way to the end. And Matt's in his car, so Matt, don't talk until I get done with this, because I'm on a roll. So you can watch that video, and you could name every single building that just gets destroyed right, left, and center for the next 2 minutes of that video before it finally you get south of it. So we went there, and I had already seen what the aftermath had looked like from Google Maps, but I had never seen it with my own eyes, because to see it, you have to, you can't just look at a map or look at a Google Street View and say, oh, I've seen the aftermath. You almost have to see it with your own eyes to believe and that something like that could happen. So when you look at the before pictures of Joplin before, where there was lots of trees around, I'm not talking, it's not Tuscaloosa tree filled, but I'm talking about there was lots of trees. And today it looks like it would look like Western Oklahoma. There's nothing there. There's a few trees, but not many. And this is what that address in Tuscaloosa looked like, because there was very few trees. So, and the thing that got me was that they said, and for people that they can read the book if they want to, that this house, I think it said 14 trees landed on this house, and the 3 occupants were killed. And it's incredibly sad, because then I had to look at the before shot to even find out where the trees were, and there was a bunch of them, so I can understand why there was that many trees. So, but that was just with the book that I read that took me 3 hours, and the stories in there, and well, it might be kind of funny is that 2 of the former guests were mentioned in this book, which would be Span from show 3 and Jason Simpson from show 9. I think it was show 9, whatever. So, and of course I had heard about all the stuff, that the personal stuff about because Span mentions quite a bit from the time on Weather Brains, because Weather Brains was mentioned. So this was mentioned and whatnot, but this book was it was probably good that I got it, but it took me this long to get it. And given that the anniversary is coming up in 1 month from tomorrow, so the 5-year anniversary is 1 month from tomorrow. So that's what the book about the What Stands in a Storm by Kim Cross that I finally read. People need to buy it. It had just come out in paperback this year or late last year, and it was in hardbound for since last year. So I'm done with that. So Matt, you're in your car or vehicle
Yes, sir.
of some kind.
It's funny you're talking about tornado paths and whatnot. I'm currently driving through the damage path of the Rapid City, Illinois tornado as we speak.
Yeah, he's in it. Yeah, because you're in Illinois driving around. So.
Yep. There you go. There's Interstate 80. There's the Rock River.
He
had a lot of fun back there behind those trees a long time ago when I was growing up.
Anyway, so he's in Illinois driving around, whereas here, since he's in Illinois, nothing's happening, and looking outside right now, nothing's happening here either. So
there's about to be quite a night, quite a pretty sunset here. There's some mid-level clouds that aren't too thin, they're not too thick, and it looks like the sky is going to be on fire here in a little bit as soon as the sun goes beneath those clouds, in between the clouds and the horizon.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get it here. It's too cloudy.
Yeah,
we've had a lot more clouds down up over here now, but
it was pretty cloudy there when we left. We left probably 3.5 hours ago.
And it takes you this long to get there?
No. We've already went dinner. I did a little Easter shopping for my wife, and I've already been back, ate a nice T-bone steak dinner, and now I'm on my way to go see my grandma.
Yeah, he's on his way for that. So we'll do that, but well, not me. You will, but but anyway, because I had to mention that book because I had to read that because I read it because I wanted it for so long. And then there was, because I know you mentioned the one book that you mentioned last week, which I did see in the bookstore. Yes. Or was it online? I think it was online, but whatever. So there's several other books I want, because I want to read the book, get one of the Joplin books. Not sure which one, because there's so many of them. So
didn't I think I'm wrong with this, but I think one of the Chasers wrote a book about Joplin. I want to say it was Jeff Piotrowski.
Yeah, Jeff Piotrowski.
Does that sound right?
I would have to ask him, because I might try to get him on in a future episode, but with it being chase season now, and he chases about anything and anything that looks like a risk area.
Yep.
So him being home is going to be like not happening between now and July. And
wait for the Death Ridge.
Well, and given that, and speaking of severe weather, there is a risk area on Wednesday in Iowa. And it might be the last one we see for at least a while, because then unfortunately we get the eastern trough again and the temperatures are going to plummet.
The polar vortex.
Unfortunately, that's going to be making an appearance again for April. April Fools, you get cold weather.
Yep.
So I mean, and people are going completely nuts. I saw, as I meant, when Derek was on a few weeks ago about people selling trees and whatnot, and I saw trees being sold here, and I'm thinking it's too early. I don't see them buying or having flowers out, because I haven't been to a Lowe's or a Home Depot, but I'm sure they're probably there. It's like, really? Our last frost is like around the last week of April or the first week of May.
Yep.
You shouldn't be planting anything until at least a week after tax day, so around the 22nd of April.
Yep.
Because you want to give it at least some time. You can't just wait until, because heck, there could be a frost in mid-May. I mean, you have to take into some consideration. So you take at least the good with the bad. But I did see one thing where it said that that El Nino Aprils, when an El Nino has peaked and is declining, Aprils following are horrifically cold for some reason.
It happened in 97, well, 98, but
and you know what happened in April?
El Nino, it was like that.
Yeah, and what happened in April of 1998? The
big tornado outbreak.
You had major tornado outbreaks in the South. For example, this is not going to use the enhanced mosquito scale. I'm going to use the regular one. There was the F5 that was in Birmingham. That was in 98 in April 8th. And then, what was it? 8 days later, April 16th, the tornado hit downtown Nashville.
Yeah.
And there was an F5 tornado that day, too, in southern Middle Tennessee. So that's what worries me about this coming up in April is something's bad's going to happen. If we get like this trough digging in across the east, nothing's going to happen because it's going to be like, well, that'll kill severe weather. The chasers will go completely insane. And then we may get chasers on Polygon because they won't be doing anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, so outside of the severe weather on Wednesday, not much else going on weather-wise.
Beautiful day today out here.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to be well, most of tomorrow on Easter, since we're doing this on the day before Easter, that day, most of Easter will be fine except the morning. At least in my part of the state, the western part of the state will be fine for Easter the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but outside of that, I thought I would go through all the former guests we've had and do some updates. And Matt, if you need to run off, you can. So I'm not going to force you to stay on all this time.
That's okay. I can hang in for a little bit.
Okay. So when you have to go, just say, I'm leaving now. So goodbye. So anyway, but whatever. So.
Okie dokie.
So, well, and there's a few of these that I've done in the past, but some of them I've never done updates on them before. So I thought it'd be a good time to do updates. Okay. Show 1, which nobody wants to talk about show 1. That was Frank's the Frank guy. The guy at KCCI, Frank. I can never say Frank guy. Gaglione, or I call him Ravioli. So the Frank guy, he was on show 1. And so he's still at KCCI on top of the 50 other things that he seems to do.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, everybody would remember too that Henry was on that show. I was on that show, and so was another person who was the only time he ever co-hosted, and that was Zach James, who at the time was doing radio in Iowa Falls. But today, and not long after that episode, which was done in 2013, mind you, it was a beta test episode, along with the second episode, which was done about 3 weeks later, and then there was like a gap of 7 months. He then got the job as a sports writer at the Clinton Herald, where he still is today. And given the fact there's been so many tornadoes over there, when we had the tornadoes over in Clinton County a week and a half ago, I sent a tweet to find out what was going on, and he sent me what had happened because he had the scoop. He's a sports writer, but he knows anything that's going on. So he gave me some tips or stuff that was going on. So we have connections.
Ooh, very
Anyway, that was show 1. Show 2 was my book review. Well, I already did one book review and whatnot, so that was it. Book 3. Show 3 was Span. He's still at the station. Show number 4 was Ricky Matthews, who at the time was a senior at UNC Charlotte. He has graduated. He is now at WCYB. He's the weekend morning meteorologist there in the Tri-Cities of Tennessee and Virginia, which just happens to be the same market where Mike Cox, who is a former co-host, actually lives in Bristol, Tennessee. And his radio station, where Mike works, is 2 blocks from the TV station that Ricky works at.
Wow.
So hindsight is 2020. Derek was on show 5. That was the first of many episodes that Derek was on. Derek is still at the Garden Center, of course, obviously. Now, some of these I don't know offhand, so this would be something I'd have to ask maybe Henry or whatnot. Jim Politis was on show 6. He was formerly from KCCI in Mason City, so of course Henry knew him personally. That was an episode I wasn't on. Jim, at the time in 2014, worked at WSI, and he showed us all this graphic stuff, and I was like, "Ooh," because I had to watch the episode while they were doing it. So he, I believe, is still there. Not sure. Henry'd have to find out. No. Of course, Randy Brock, we mentioned last week that he is going to be leaving KTTC and going into real estate in July. That was show 7.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Simpson was show 8, not show 9. Jason Simpson is still at WHNT, and he's still chief. Show 9 was Nate Johnson. He is still at WRAL in
Who just
Raleigh.
became NBC a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, they became an NBC affiliate. Show 10 was Dan Threlkeld, who was formerly from KJRH in Tulsa, and he also was the second. Just look up KFOR's More 1999 coverage that has Mike Morgan on it, and you see another gentleman on there with him, and that's Dan Threlkeld. And now my phone is ringing. Let me go see.
Uh-oh.
I hate people calling and I don't know who they are. Anyway,
telemarketers.
Telemarketers
have the worst timing.
Okay, back to this. Show 10 was Dan Threlkeld. That's right. He was doing the tornado shelter thing at the time. He sold his half of the business off. He then went into radio for a time. Now he's at the Oklahoma State Health Center, doing something at the health center at Oklahoma State's campus, I think at Tulsa, because it's not the Stillwater campus. I'd have to look, because I do follow him on Facebook. Anyway, back to this. Adam Lucio was on show 11. He is still storm chasing. He still hates the state of Iowa and storm chasing in Iowa.
Yes, he does. I still have an open invitation from him to go chase with him at some point.
Yeah, he is a nice person. He tends to be a little gruff, but he's nice. He looks like he could deck me. So anyway.
He's a construction worker. He's a fellow construction worker.
Yeah, well, the only thing I worry about is he lives in a bad part of Chicago. But anyway, so then there was episode 12, Matt Labon, which I consider one of the top 10 shows I've done, mainly because, like yourself earlier in the episode, he was driving his car home at the time of our little meet and greet. In a convertible, no less. And then he decided to get up and run up into the attic of his house. So that was kind of strange, but I consider that. And he's still at WTVA, still winning Emmy Awards right, left, and center with his wife, Emily Leonard, who happens to be the anchor. So that's that. Mike Cox, the Bristol, Tennessee Mike, his first appearance was on episode 13. He then became a co-host part-time. Then after that, we had, and of course he's still at the radio station, Trevor Burchett was one of Henry's guests, and I was not on that episode. He's down in Memphis doing a storm chase thing. I think he still does that, as far as I know.
He's doing the Memphis weather thing now, isn't he?
Trevor Burchett?
Yeah, he's He's helping out with the MemphisWeather.com thing.
Maybe. I'm
I
not
think.
sure.
I thought I saw his name on that.
But
Could
yeah,
be wrong.
he and the funny thing is that he does the 10th Memphis stuff, but he lives in Mississippi because he lives in the Mississippi suburbs. That's the last when he was on the show. That was another show I was not on, and that's a show and that's a show that Derek and Henry did. So Tom Miners or Miners, whatever his name is, at WBBJ in Jackson, Tennessee, was on the following episode 15. He's still there. Dan Goff, who was at the University of South Carolina doing graduate work, is, gosh, I have to find out where he is right now. He went to Virginia Tech. That's where he got his first degree. He went to South Carolina. I think he might still be there. Not sure. Tim Hallbach was on episode 17. He at the time was at the Weather Service in La Crosse. He is now at the Weather Service in Milwaukee. So, and then episode 18 was Bill Gallus, who's at Iowa State. He's still there. He's been there forever.
I was about to say, he's one of the old guys there.
He's like, oh, but he was involved in the project that they did, the Plains Elevated Convection at Night, or Pecan project, which we did discuss on that show. He did that last summer. I have to get a hold of them to ask if they've come up with anything. Then after that, episode 19 and 20 was Keith over in New Jersey, who Henry and I talked to Keith last night. So with Henry on a hangout. He's still in high school. He's trying to choose between where he's going to go to school or whatnot, because he and Henry are roughly the same age. Oh, Nathan Parker was on show 21. That was one of the first of two times. Nathan works or is part of Weatherbug, and he lives in Arkansas, and he does a lot of stuff with Weatherbug and whatnot. Show 22 was Tim Heller, who used to live in this area. He used to be at Channel 2. It's now at Channel 13 in Houston. And that episode ended up turning into the let's talk about Tim to Tassel and Corn. Skip Talbot was on show 23. He was also on a year later as well. He's still chasing. He still lives in Springfield, Illinois, as far as I know.
And still one of the few people around here that remembers well the 6-state supercell.
Yeah, the one that you just talked about a couple of.
Yes, the one that I nearly killed my wife on when we were on our third date.
Yeah. Okay, show 24, Nick Miller is from the Met Office in the BBC. He's still doing that. Did talk to him about 3 weeks ago. They haven't, because there's the thing about the BBC has dumped the contract with Met Office for their weather information or whatnot. That hasn't ended yet. It's expected to be ending soon, and Nick has not decided if he's staying with the BBC or staying with the Met Office. We'll see. Meredith Garfalo was on show 25. She's still, I believe, over in California, as far as I know. And she sang happy birthday to me on that episode, because that was right around my birthday. Satterfield was on the following episode, 26. He's still at WBOC in Salisbury. Eric Sorensen was on show 27. And there's a train.
Yes. I have just arrived at my childhood home, and the most notorious thing is we live a block away from two major sets of railroad tracks, one belonging to the Iowa Interstate Railway, and the other one belonging to the Burlington Northern Railway.
Yay. And now they're probably wondering why you're talking into a phone. So Sorensen was on show 27. He was at WQAD at the time, where he still is. And then show 28 was a review show, which we'll skip. Rob Perillo was on show 29. He's at KATC in Lafayette, Louisiana. Still there. Mark Bogner, who was formerly at KSNW in Wichita, but at the time we had him on, he was still doing
I apologize. I'm trying to cover up the microphone as much as I can.
The train must be moving like 2 miles an hour. Anyway.
No, it's not. It's going through about 15 different intersections in this little bitty town, and it's about to get a lot louder.
Because it's about to cross your street.
It's about to go through the closest part that go to my childhood home.
Okay, prepare yourself, folks. This is the first time we've ever had a train whistle on a Polygon episode. This is celebration. It's celebrating. Anyway,
that's exactly why I did this. It was perfect. It's Easter. I'm at my childhood home, and I get to have a train make loud noises for us in celebration for episode 100.
Yay! Mark Bogner was on in show 30, and he was working at Belltone at the time, which he still is, because this is what weather people do when they get out of the business. They either go into real estate, go to Belltone, or go do something else that has nothing to do with weather. Doug Hetty was on show 31. Doug Hetty's at KOAM. That must have been the loud one.
About to be.
Oh, great. It's going to get worse, folks. Okay.
One more.
Yeah, that's not.
There it is. Okay. Now it's just going to be the low drone of the train going by.
Anyway, Doug Hetty was on show 31. He's still there. Show 32, there was no guest. Show 33 was Eric Fisher. He's still at WBZ. Oh, wait a minute. This started like a string of like a thing of stuff, so I'll mention this. Eric Fisher was at WBZ in Boston. He's still there, former Weather Channel employee. Dan Pope was the next episode, 34. He's at KTVX in Salt Lake City. He's a former Weather Channel employee. Then, of course, we then skip the Weather Channel Employee Fest and go to David Spence, who is at CTV in Calgary. He's still there, mustacheless because he shaved it off. Skip ahead to show 37 because I'll just skip the no guest episodes. Matt Makins was at KMGH in Denver, and he left that job, and right now he's currently unemployed, and he needs a job. And he wants to stay in Denver. So any Denver station that's not named KMGH, hire this man. So anyway, John Wetter was on show 38. Of course, that's the Hop WRF guy.
Yep.
He was on again later. Skip show 39 because that's Derek again. Then we had the Top 10 show, which caused so much Twitter fervor. Tony Manolfi from WESH in Orlando was on show 41. He's still there. Lisa Spencer from WSMV in Nashville was on show 42. Former Weather Channel employee. He's still at Channel 4. Chad Sandwell from KMEG in Sioux City was on show 43. He's still there. He was also on for the winter preview we had a couple of months ago, and he failed miserably in that. Show 45, Shane Butler, a former span person. He at the time was at WRDW in Augusta, Georgia. He is now at WAKA in Montgomery, which is actually his home market because he is from that area.
Ooh.
Jeff Cornish was in Erie, Pennsylvania. He still is. He also does the Caribbean stuff. He does like 60,000 things. He still does. Along with these, Jeff, I think isn't Jeff Cornish the Zoom radar guy?
Jeff Hornish?
Yeah, Jeff Cornish. I'm thinking.
I want to say so, yes.
Yes, because he mentioned that too. So then we skip show 47 because there's no guest. 48 was a repeat guest, which was Nathan Parker again from Weatherbug. Show 49 was Rachel Witter from WFXV and WUTR in Utica, New York. She's still there. She's an Iowa State grad. She was not happy yesterday when Iowa State lost to Virginia. She was not a happy person. Show 50 was Dr. Tony Lupo from the University of Missouri, except he was not in the University of Missouri. He wasn't even in the country. He was live from Russia. And he was doing the episode in Russia at 2 in the morning in Russia.
Wow.
And where he was only about 40 or 50 miles from the border with Ukraine. And that was during the time, and still is during the time, of the infamous, there's like this fight going on over Ukraine right now. And there was a lot of that going on back then, too. So that was kind of a bit interesting there.
So live from the hot zone.
Yeah, he was from he wasn't there for that reason. But anyway, he's
Right.
back home now. So he is back at the University of Missouri. Jason Prentice, who was at Whether or Not, which was a consulting firm in Kansas City, was on show 51. He is no longer there. He now works for the Kansas government, I think in something. I can't remember what it is. Jason is originally from just Northwest Iowa, from Terrell, whatever. Terrell. Yeah, he's from there. He went to Iowa State.
Quick question. Is he any relation to the old storm chaser Bob Prentice?
No.
I didn't think so. I've always wanted to ask him.
Bob or Robert, because I know it's Rob. I've seen Robert Prentice.
I think they are one and the same.
Yeah, but they're not. Yeah. And then
he was the one that had a big hand in the tornado project back in the mid '90s.
Yeah.
That produced the Twisters Nature's Fury video series.
Oh no, good Lord, oh good grief! I could get on that because I have the VHS tapes of that.
I do too, and I also have them saved on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my eighth grade English teacher, whom I'm looking into his window right now because I used to live that close to my childhood school. His name was Alan Knott. He was in that program.
Okay.
He suffered some tornado damage and he sent it in to the tornado project.
Oh, was it the Port Byron tornado?
Yes, March 13th, 1990.
Was it the house that got destroyed?
Yeah, you see him climb out the window and he goes, "Oh geez, we lost our garage."
Oh, okay. Now I know who that is. Famous person. So
it wasn't him that was holding his camera. The camera. It was his wife. You see him for about 1 second, when they come upstairs out of the basement, and you see a really tall, big guy with a bald head. Well, not bald, but he was bald on the top of his head. He was walking kind of up and off to the right.
Yeah,
that was him. He was my eighth grade English teacher at Kelowna Grade School, Kelowna, Illinois.
I had to look to see what was going on outside. But anyway, so that's where were we? Oh yeah, Jason Prentice, and he is no relation. So anyway, he's at the Kansas government doing something. I don't remember. Going on to the Iowa State theme, John Wheeler is an Iowa State grad. He's up at WDAY, WDAZ in Fargo Grand Forks. He's still there. Tim Marshall was on show 53. He is still at Hague Engineering because he's been there since he graduated college, I think.
Yep.
And he's still there. He will be in Iowa next weekend for the severe weather Doppler radar conference that's in Ankeny next weekend.
I'm still hoping to go to that. Crossing my fingers.
I am not, because I have stuff to do and I have a doctor's appointment. So anyway, so I can't go now.
Ruh-roh.
So wah. Anyway, Tom Coombs was on show 54. He is still in South Bend. Dave Nussbaum was on show 55. He is still at WWL in New Orleans. Both of them I saw at NWA. And then Tom yelled at me for not saying hi to him. Okay, Eric Wilhelm was on show 57. He is still at WFMJ in Youngstown. He is still there. Show 58 with John Wetter again from Hop WRF. Jeff Baskin was on Show 59 from KLRT in Little Rock, and he got choked in that episode. Anyway, so you just have to watch that episode to understand. JP Dice was on Show 60 from WBRC in Birmingham. He's still there. Steve Hilberg was on Show 61. He's still formerly from the Midwest Regional Climate Center because he's the former director, and he's still the former director. He still works with them, but he's the former director. Jason Myers was on Show 62. He is still at WTBQ in Lexington, Kentucky. And then we skip ahead to Show 65, which is Patrick Powell from WLUK in Green Bay. He's still there. Scott Sistek from Como 4 in Seattle on Show 67. He is still there. And he is still doing his blog for them and the sister station in Portland. Travis Meyer was on Show 68. He is at KOTV in Tulsa. He still is. And then skip down to Show 71. Adam Caskey is at KSAT in San Antonio. He is still there, and he is still making thermometers and whatnot that look like either a boot or the state of Texas. We have to skip Talbot again. He was on Show 72 to Show 73, which is Chuck Collins, which is not his real name. He's in Peoria. He still is. Then we skip all through the Oklahoma series of episodes, which are shows 75 through 80, down to Show 81, which is Patrick Marsh. He is still at the Storm Prediction Center doing stuff and still on Twitter causing controversy. The winter preview shows we did with a bunch of guests. Oh, my goodness gracious. Show 87, Wayne Hart in Evansville. He's still there. Of course, that episode was only a couple of months ago. Brian Busby in Kansas City was Show 88. He is still there, and he still owes me barbecue. Mm-hmm. And then Sean Sublette, which is a show you were on back in February. He's still at Climate Central. Ashton Altieri is still in Texas and Dallas. And Tim Smith, who you said is named after, he had a band named after him.
Yes.
Of course, that was only a month ago today, in fact. He is still in Brownsville, McAllen, Harlingen, because he didn't get fired from when we had him on the show. So those are all the guests that have been on, except for one which I mentioned, which is John Bailey, who was on one show, and I discount him because he does chasing. He's with Forever Chasing in Kansas. I've met him before, and I met him after the fact. Or no, wait a minute. I met him after he was on the show, and then I met him in person. So he is the only guest outside of the ones that I saw at NWI that I actually met in person. So, but seen, that's a different story. Met in person, that would be John. But anyway, so that's all we've had so far, and that's
a good list.
That's a good update. Well, I did a thing on Twitter, which you didn't see, of course, because you were driving and eating dinner somewhere. I'd make a mention. Where were you eating dinner?
I'm sorry?
Where were you eating dinner?
Oh. When was that again? I'm sorry.
When? As in tonight, as in eating.
Oh, I was eating dinner at my in-laws' place in Princeton, Iowa.
Okay. Which
Had a
is
nice, lovely steak dinner. Which is
north of LeClaire, for those that don't know.
Yes, about maybe as a crow flies, about 10 miles north of the Iowa side of the Quad Cities.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so outside of that, hoping we're going to get more guests, because good grief, I'm getting sick of not having guests, but people are annoying and are not responding to me. So anyway,
I got some stuff up my sleeve. I'm going to shoot you that list.
Yeah, you can do that. You don't have to do it this week, and people are going to. I mean, not tonight because you're not home, but when you get.
I have some good ideas for people to have on. I'm kind of shooting for the stars, so to speak.
Oh yeah, well we can shoot for
We're
the
trying to get
stars,
50.
but we're not going to get any. We can't get everybody, but anyway.
That's okay. We can
Oh, now I'm going to rant again because
Uh-oh.
I just made me think about this. Okay, Henry sent me last night a link to a website that is to a show. That's a weather show that's going to start in June. Stormfront, I think it's Stormfront Freaks. It's at stormfrontfreaks.com. I'll give them some credibility because they're not on yet. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, another weather show to have on because it's going to be a podcast. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many of them now. Remember, and you could even mention this too, Matt, because you remember this. James Spann, Weather Brains, used to say we're the best weather podcast around because we're the only one. Not anymore. It's becoming overcrowded now.
I was about to say now it's a pretty crowded market.
It's going to get to the point that you could have a primetime show list Monday through Friday, just Monday through Friday, and have hours of programming starting at 7 o'clock onward, because you could have enough programming now between Weather Brains, Polygon, which is this show, the Carolina Weather Group show, the Weather Junkies show that's done from a guy at NBC Connecticut, who I don't really like right now. Anyway, and then you have the Stormfront podcast thing. And I'm probably missing 50,000 ones. And that doesn't even include the one that Doswell did with Gene Roden that they had on a couple of years ago. That one's, of course, gone now. But
that was amazing. I went back and listened to those shows. Those shows were really cool. But I'm a really, really, really big Doswell fan.
Yeah. And yes, I saw Doswell. And Doswell will be in it. I think, isn't Doswell supposed to be up in Ankeny too?
The last time I saw the website, his name was on it. So I would assume so.
So he's going to cause trouble. So you know what's going to happen come Wednesday? There's going to be people that are going to come in early just to see severe weather.
Yeah. Come to severe weather and stay for the conference.
Like, what do you do when you have a conference? Bring in severe weather like the day or two before, and they'll all come, and then if there's going to be like tornadoes or whatnot, hope to gosh there's not, because I don't want to have to do tornado.
It'll be Iowa. There's not going to be any tornadoes.
Oh yeah, that's right. We have to put in the risk, because I make the mention I did this one time when they say tornadoes don't happen in Iowa, and already Iowa's had 3 this year.
Yeah. Maybe this is the year the Iowa black hole myth gets completely broken.
Nah, I doubt it. Anyway, so one time I did something funny. We were in a chat room, a bunch of the network people that we were doing this. So I decided a risk area had come out from SPC. This was like the day one first risk area. So I took it, or no, it was like an update or something. It was not at night. It was during the day. So I took it and I actually cut Iowa completely out of the risk area, put everything surrounding Iowa in the risk area, not Iowa. And I was like, oh my God, look what they did. And then I posted the picture and they went ballistic. And I swear this was like a month or two later, they almost did that. SPC almost did that. They like took Iowa and took it completely out, but everything kind of surrounding it was still included. And I thought, oh my God, they actually did it. I thought, oh, good night. And then it was, I think, yesterday, they did this in Alabama. They were like, oh, nope, no severe weather for Alabama. And they took out everything except the far southern end of Alabama. I'm thinking, what?
Well, they had a fairly legitimate reason, because when they did the update,
it was raining.
All the storms.
Yeah, and it was raining,
sucking up all that good inflow.
Yeah, and all it was in northern and central Alabama was just plain rain or clouds. So.
Yep.
So
I apologize for the dog if you can hear it.
Which we can barely hear it. So of course I'm kind of over here.
I'm trying to find places where it's not so prevalent. So I keep walking around trying to keep that thing from interrupting the show.
Of course, you keep looking. People are going to still wonder why you're outside.
Probably because there's This is a very quiet neighborhood.
Yeah, so we're gonna end it now because we want Matthew to go into the house, so then they're not calling the cops.
Well, my grandma knows what's going on. She's my biggest cheerleader. I called her and told her that I was going to become an internet show host, and at first she was like, "What's that?" Because she barely knows what the internet is, and I described it to her and how it's broadcast live all over the world. Anybody in the world can click on the link and see it, and oh, my grandson's gonna be on TV. So yeah, she's pretty proud.
Oh, brother. I've only been on TV once. That was when I was on Weather Brains when they broadcasted on the sub channel. So I have been on television in Birmingham, Alabama.
I'm trying to think of that show. There was a TV show that I was on when I was a kid. Do you remember a show called Romper Room?
Oh, good night. You're not that old.
I was on an episode of Romper Room.
Romper Room didn't exist that late, did it? In the Quad Cities, did it?
1985. I was 3 years old.
They didn't have that in this market. They got rid of all the local programming before.
Really?
They dumped most of that in the 80s. It was all cartoons or talk shows by the 80s.
I did one episode with that, and that was the only time that I was on TV for anything good.
Uh-oh. I don't like the anything good.
Well, I was on a news clip sitting on a swing about 3 years later. That's about as far as I'll go with that.
Uh-oh. Anyway.
It was literally like 3 seconds. It was a typical news clip.
Anyway.
My neighbor is outside playing with his remote control car.
Now that tells you it's spring.
He is also a storm chaser, as a matter of fact.
Oh dear.
He is. He's actually got some pretty decent stuff to his credit.
Good night. So, but other than that, we'll see what next week's going to bring. I'm hoping I'm not going to end up with the doctor's appointment. I'm not going to end up in the hospital or something because I'm starting to get the infamous aches and pains of being old.
Oh, you're not that old.
I'm 35.
You only have 2 years on me?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm an old geezer. Get out the walker. So
yeah.
But so I'm having stuff done on April Fool's Day, so that'll be fun. I'll get April Fools. You're going to the hospital. So,
you'll be indoors for the cold snap then.
Cold snap will be that'll be the whole next weekend. People are not going to be happy.
No, it's not.
Yeah, because the thing I'm concerned about, and I wonder because you did cross the Mississippi, was it looking kind of up?
Not really. It looked pretty much average.
Normal.
Some of the little tributaries, like the Rock River that I showed you.
Yeah.
It looked fairly high, but it's usually fairly high around here. The Rock River around here in the Quad Cities is notorious for ice jam flooding.
Yeah.
And
wouldn't have any of that now because it's been ice free for a while now.
Right, but they actually had some ice last quite a while, so I think they're still dealing with winter runoff. Well, I think the Rock is still dealing with
the runoff from Rockford and whatnot.
Yeah, from Rockford and southern Wisconsin and stuff.
Yeah. So I know all of a sudden it just seemed like in the last couple of days, all these flood warnings popped up for the Mississippi River all at once. I'm like, okay, what?
For what?
Yeah. I'm wondering mainly because with all that snow that we had that was north of here, that's why I never really mentioned it because there was 13 inches of snow in northwest Iowa. When you look at it today, and I don't think they have any anymore because it all melted so quick.
Now, one river of note that looked really high though was the Wapsipinicon River. When we were on our way from our house to our in-laws' house, there was actually some pretty decent
You went
flooding
on
ongoing.
you went on 30 though.
On 30, and I crossed it again, closer to
DeWitt. Or
east
did
of
you?
DeWitt.
No. Did you cross on 61 the Wapsie, or did you cross on 67?
Closer to 61. There's a little county road when you turn off of 30 at the DeWitt exit, but instead of turning left to go into DeWitt, you turn right.
Okay.
Follow that down south. There's a restaurant called Fairyland.
You mean the old? You mean old 61?
Yeah, old 61. Yes, you cross the river there. There's a little bridge there.
Yeah.
That is actually, there's some pretty significant flooding ongoing right there at that bridge.
Okay.
It's very high.
Yeah. Which I don't understand, because the Wapsie up here seems to be at normal. So I don't know where it's coming from.
That's the baffling thing, because Wapsie at Highway 30, a few miles east of you, looks fairly, I could probably call it at best a little high.
What down at the Wapsie at Highway 30 between Wheatland and Calamus.
Yes.
Yeah. Up here I'd say it's normal for spring.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's normal for summer, because it'd be a little lower, but
right.
It's normal for spring. I just don't, because I noticed that when I was in Davenport a couple of days ago, when I went down there, it just seemed like the river, especially the Wapsie, was a bit high for some reason. It wasn't here, but
it must have been the storms that produced the tornadoes. There was a lot of rain that.
This was, God, this was the day before. This was the day before the hailstorm that I talked about at the beginning of the show.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, yeah, and it's going to rain again, so that's going to be annoying. But anyway, Mississippi is flooding. I didn't mention that during my current thing because it's flooding. So, but it's not going to be like a 93 flood. It's going to be the typical spring flooding. Oh, something's going to go up a foot above flood stage. A campground may flood or something.
Yep.
So people still be fine. You can still boat within reason. You can still be by the river, but you need to be careful.
Correct.
So you can't be like, oh, we can just go swimming. I wouldn't even swim in the Mississippi. I don't care what the level is. Mississippi is a busy river. It's a river of commerce. It's not a river for play.
And you get below that first foot or two, and that river's fast.
Yeah, you don't want to go in.
I can tell you that from personal experience, falling off of a tube right about probably 100 meters east of the Centennial Bridge. Not fun.
Yeah, and then by the time he was rescued, he was 500 meters east of the Muscatine Bridge.
Probably. I coasted quite a ways. I think I was in the water for about 3 minutes after I fell off. I was sucked under twice and managed to get myself back up. And by the time I actually got my behind back in the boat, I was already probably 100 meters the other side of the Centennial Bridge.
Yeah. That's why you don't want to. And that was probably at a level that was fairly normal.
Yeah, that was the spring of. I take that back. That was the summer of 1992 when that happened.
Yeah, 92. Most people don't forget that 92 was a fairly wet year.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a flood year, but it was a wet year that kind of led to the 93 flood because everything was high. That was the year that I lived. We were in between. This goes back to me again. We had sold our house, and we hadn't bought a house yet, so we had to rent a house for the summer of 92. And that summer, it just rained and rained and rained and rained and rained. And I think that summer alone, because I took measurements that summer, and I must have had, just in that summer alone, at least 30 inches of rain in 92. Wow. I'm surprised we didn't have flooding that year, but we did.
My grandmother is luring me inside with food. She
Well, you
has
can get off
brownies.
now, so we'll get off. So we'll see you next week because Matthew's going to eat. And so,
No, you don't understand. These brownies are basically their own food group.
yes,
Hashtag
he's going to eat
Twister
now. So,
reference.
Matt, say goodbye.
Bye-bye. See you later, everybody. Happy show 100 and happy Easter.
Yes, happy Easter. And Matthew's going to stuff his face.
Yes.
So that was Matt, and he's going to go eat now. So anyway, so thanks for joining us on this 100th episode, everybody. Matt had us with train whistles and whatnot. So we were this episode was brought to you by one of the railroads. We're not sure which one that whistled at us, but it was one of them. So thank you. We'll see what we do for April 1st. It could be April Fool's, it could on Friday, or it could be April 2nd. So everybody sing goodbye. Have a great Easter month of April. Stay warm, stay cold, stay dry, stay wet. Bye-bye.